So what do you think is going to be happening when we have radical equations? What do you think radical equations are?
Radical sign when we're solving.
We're going to be solving equations that contain radicals. Just like when we had rational equations that we had on the last test, they were equations that contained fractions, and we had to solve those. And the thing is, it's all about x being in an awkward place, and we've got to break them out, put them in a place that's useful. Now, in order for us to do that, we need to understand the power property. And here's what the power property says. It says that all solutions to the equation A equals B can be found among solutions to the equation A to the n equals B to the n, where n is a natural number. When we talk about being a natural number, that means we're talking about the counting numbers, 1, 2, 3, and so on. You should not be raising these guys to fraction exponents, to rational exponents, or negatives. It's really just not in your best interest to do that. But this is a power property, and we use this guy to solve our equations. Now, there are a few simple steps for solving these radical equations. The first step is to isolate the radical. What does it mean to isolate the radical?
Get it by itself.
Get it by itself. If I have more than one radical, and we're going to see some of those come up, then you have to get one of those guys by itself. And once I do that, I'm going to apply the power property. Apply the power property. Now that means you have to raise both sides of the equation to the appropriate power to kind of cancel things out. If you have a square root, what power would you use to dissolve the square root? 2. If you have a cube root, you would use what? The third power, right? The power is going to match the blank of the radical. Index. Well, gee, man, you guys know this. The third step is to repeat steps 1 and 2 until no radicals remain. Again, this really comes into play when you have more than one radical. If all you have is a single radical, steps 1 and 2 will knock out your radical. And then, of course, the fourth step kind of goes without saying. Solve and check. It is super, super important for you to check, because some of these equations will have extraneous solutions that are not going to work. So let's start off with a nice example here. We'll follow these steps one by one. If I have the square root of x plus 2 is equal to 7, my first step is to isolate the radical. But that's already been done for you. The radical is completely by itself on one side of the equation. Okay? Now, notice the problem that we have here is that x is inside the radical, right? I've got to break him out. And that's where step 2 and the power property will come into play. So what power will I raise both sides of the equation to? I'm going to basically square both sides of the equation. Now when I do that, I come up with what? X plus 2 equals 49. And since this is a nice linear equation, I know how to solve this. X equals what?
47.
X equals 47. Now before you box this, we better make sure that everything checks out. It doesn't mean you need to erase your boxing here.
Erasing it.
Well, let me tell you this about the power property. The power property says that all solutions to this guy can be found here. But it doesn't say that every solution here works in the original guy. We are doing manipulations with the equation, and those manipulations will help us find the solution. So if there's a solution here, we can find it here. Now, we might also get some extra guys that don't work, and we will probably call those solutions what? Extraneous, just like we talked about before with rational equations. So let's take a moment very quickly and let's check this guy.
Square root of 47 plus 2, which is 49 equals 7.
So when you check, of course, if you have the cool colored pens or markers that I've got, it's pretty easy. Keep everything original, and then you plug in what you have for the x. So the x gets replaced by 47. And then we're just going to see, is everything true? Are these guys equal?
Yes.
Does the square root of 49 equal 7? And of course it does. Everything checks out. So yes, now let's go back here because we know that if I don't box this, it's going to be wrong.